Skunk, dog crap, and ketchup. As is usually the case, a pretty decent episode of Two and a Half Men. This is the 13th episode of season 8. It's directed by James Widdoes, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. I don't have that many thoughts. I don't have that much to say. I really enjoyed it. There wasn't really anything that I didn't care for, but I will go through things and share some brief thoughts, but I can just sum up by saying it's really good fun. And also John Cryer gave a great performance, as is usually always the case. It starts off with Alan in bed having a dream about his childhood being beat up by people. Lyndsey then leaves the room and she goes through to the kitchen and living room and she's talking with Charlie, and it's quite nice to see them interacting and getting along, and they're talking about gambling, and then Charlie brings up Lyndsey's brief adult entertainment career with cinnamon buns, and yeah, the conversation is a bit awkward, but it's well written. It's nice to see them bonding. And then we cut to the following morning, and Alan and Charlie are in the kitchen. Alan happens to find some cinnamon buns in the fridge. And then Lyndsey comes in, and it is a little awkward as we remember the conversation we had. And there is this kind of thought that maybe Lyndsey and Charlie would be better suited than Lyndsey and Alan. Maybe certainly if they'd met however many years ago. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do think once upon a time they might have been better suited. But I actually think Lyndsey and Alan are really, really good together. But then Charlie starts to talk with Lyndsey, asking her about schools, where she'd want Eldridge to go. And this is because he's trying to get some gambling insights out of her without making it known that that's what he's doing. And Alan gets concerned. And to be honest, I don't necessarily think Alan is overreacting. Charlie is behaving in a way that's quite questionable, and it's not unusual for him to be up to no good. So now he thinks that Charlie's trying to sleep with Lyndsey. And I don't think that's an overreaction on Alan's part. Well, maybe the way he handled it was, but the thought I can believe. But he also needs to realise that Lyndsey isn't just going to jump into bed with Charlie, even if that's what Charlie wants. And we then go back to Lyndsey's house, which is nice. It's been all fixed up after it was burned. And she gives Alan a house key, not to move in, but so he can just come and go as he pleases. Which I have to say, I don't love. I would never, and this is purely just me, I'd love to know if anybody has any strong thoughts on this, but I would never give somebody a key to my house for them to come and go as they please. I'd give them a key for emergencies, but I wouldn't say, here's a key so you can come and go as you please. Please don't do that. So I find that a little bit peculiar, but I don't know. I'd love to know if other people are quite happy to give people they're dating copies of their keys. And then they're going to have a party, a kind of welcome to our renovated home party. And I really like the fact that Lyndsey was suggesting people to invite, and she's inviting Charlie, of course, but she's also inviting Berta, and it was a really nice moment. I think it's very clear that Lyndsey cares about Alan, but she also cares about people in Alan's life. And I think that's a really great foundation for a solid relationship, and it's really lovely to see. And obviously when she mentions Charlie, Alan thinks that she's now going to try and sleep with Charlie as well. They argue, she demands the key back. That's how we end that. We then cut to later on, they're getting ready to go to the party, Charlie, Berta and Jake. Alan is just sitting in a chair, wearing his robe, reading a book. He's not going to the party because they had this argument. And as I said, I really like that they're inviting everybody, including Berta, because it really helps to solidify that she is one of the family. She's not just hired help. She's part of the family. She's part of the household. And I think that's just really lovely to see. And Alan does actually decide to go to the party. Well, kind of. It's a really nice atmosphere. Everybody's mingling. And then we see at the window Alan peeking through, and he's watching Charlie and Lyndsey talking, perfectly innocent. We, the viewer, can see that it's perfectly innocent, but Alan is not having it. But then a skunk approaches him, and he is sprayed by the skunk. So he runs around trying to work out what to do, and he ends up going to Judith and Herb's yard. He thinks they're meant to be at the party, but Judith had a migraine, so they decided to stay. And he's hosing himself down with the hose, and Herb comes out, and it's a fun scene. It's really fun. And then Herb has some suggestions for him on how to get rid of the spray. And the next thing we know, Alan turns up at Lyndsey's door, covered in, well, as the title suggested, skunk spray, dog poop, and ketchup. and Alan's wearing a kind of yellow mustard, almost mustard yellow shirt, and I thought that was a really, really great decision because it kind of looks like ketchup and mustard when he's covered in all of this red goop, and I just thought it was a really great decision. It would have been as funny with any other colour shirt, but it really helped contrast with those colours, and I rather enjoyed that, and it just looked brilliant. And then Alan finds out Charlie has already left, not with Lyndsey, and then there's another skunk. And then we have the final scene, and Charlie and Lyndsey are in the coffee shop, and it's a really lovely conversation between them because Charlie is really bigging up Alan. I don't think he would ever do this in front of Alan. I don't think he'd ever want Alan to know that he is praising him, but he is. He's bigging him up and asking Lyndsey to give him another chance. And then Alan is at the window of the coffee shop again, so he's kind of just making things really awkward. And it's not unusual, but I do feel like as the show progresses, Alan becomes more and more unhinged and has more and more questionable behaviours. And Charlie is increasingly doing the right thing. And I think that this character development and seeing things kind of flip around is great. That's not to say that everything Alan did in season 1, 2, 3 is perfect and exemplary. Nor is that to say everything Charlie is doing now is brilliant, but we're getting to see kind of the opposite sides of both of them, and I think it's great. It's a good, fun episode. I've never, and I don't wish for this, but well, actually maybe I do. I've never smelled a skunk spray. I'm in the UK, skunks are not a problem here, but I just can't begin to imagine what it smells like. And part of me wants to know what it smells like, but I don't want to be near a skunk when it sprays, so I don't know if it's actually possible for that to happen. But yeah, I enjoyed the episode. It's really good fun. It's a great look at how Alan's responding to things. Yes, he is overreacting. Not initially. I think he was right to maybe be a little bit concerned with Charlie's intentions when he was having what was clearly a very awkward and peculiar conversation with Lyndsey about gambling, or, well, about schools. So I don't disagree with that. But yeah, everything else Alan did, I do disagree with. If he was really that worried about Charlie trying to get with Lyndsey, go to the party, talk with Lyndsey, make sure you can see Charlie talking with other people as well. Don't just stand outside. I don't need to explain this. His behaviour wasn't great. But the episode itself, really enjoyed it. Skunk, dog crap and ketchup is a really decent episode of 2.5 Men.